Welcome in to KSR Signing Day Special. I'm Nick Roush, joined by my pals Freddie Maggard and Adam Luckett here at KS office in the heart of Lexington, Kentucky, where we just spoke with Mark Stoops, who announced the addition of 22 signings. He's since added a 23rd, and Kentucky has the 34th ranked recruiting class. It's currently about 3 in the afternoon, and who knows, Jamarion Wilcox, I'm still checking the phone every once in a while. Nope, still not official yet. We're hoping that one comes in live shortly. But in the meantime, to get this out to you, the masses, we're going to be breaking down all of the additions, both from the transfer portal and the high school signing day. And Luckett and I had the pleasure of joining y'all on KSR's YouTube channel already to talk about the addition of Devin Leary. But we haven't heard from Freddie Maggard yet. So, Freddie, is Devin Leary as good of a quarterback as one mulleted Freddie Maggard?
He's much better than my mullet days. I like Leary a lot. 35 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. I like that ratio. Durability is my question with him. Mm-hmm. Can he stay healthy for a whole season? Played half a year this year, but 2021, he was really good. I like the fact that Kentucky's going to have a quarterback that they're not scared to use. You mentioned it earlier in the year how under Scangarello, Levis wasn't going to run, and there was a lot about protecting Levis for the pros and all that. That was somewhat UK basketball to me. I didn't like that. I think it's going to be good that UK is going to have a quarterback that they can let unleash and just let him play every aspect of his game. I think Levis was somewhat handcuffed before he got hurt, and I'm looking forward to seeing him, Leary, playing under Lee and Cohen and those receivers. I mean, he's got some dudes. All those young receivers, tight ends, running back, getting ready to hopefully add a all-purpose running back that could play early, and especially in the passing down situation. So I really like Leary a lot, and I think that was a huge home run pickup for Kentucky.
Well, and we mentioned it going into this process of finding a quarterback. Your receivers are the strength of your team, Luckett. Yeah. It's no longer – Chris Rodriguez isn't walking through that door anymore. You picked up a nice running back in Ray Davis, but he's going to have to throw the football a lot for Kentucky to win ball games this year.
Yeah, like Freddie's mentioned in the trust factor, like Devin Leary has the capacity to drop back 40 times a game and make good decisions over and over and put you in good spaces. But to do that, you need to have good receivers, right? We know last year we saw Jamarion Brown come in and contribute right away, and I think you could see something similar this year. Like Shamar Porter is a dude. We've already heard Mark Stoops talk about him. Strong, I think he said, really good kid, committed, strong work ethic. And you could see it with him. He's a true ex-receiver, ball winner. He has vertical speed, a track and field background. He's really good and can run. Anthony Brown is a true slot receiver. We assume Tavion Robinson's coming back. We don't know for sure. But you can for sure see Anthony Brown plugging in there at slot receiver last year. He had excellent tape, 83 receptions, 1,626 yards, 21 touchdowns for a state championship team in Ohio. Was just awesome all year. And you could see both those two guys, Porter, Brown, being kind of number twos, where Brown may be at slot, Porter may be behind Dane Key at X. And then you got a guy in Ardell Banks who was a late riser, but was a real vertical weapon. Up there at Massillon this year, and he could potentially turn into something. So I think they lost Carmelo English today on signing day to Michigan. Demetrius Bell is still out there. But overall, like Nick, we've just seen a total transformation in the wide receiver recruiting. And they're getting guys that can come in and play right away, and I think you're going to see that again next year.
It was a huge win for the passing game. I thought there was one other thing that really jumped out when Mark Stoops was talking about Devin Leary, not just his arm strength or his physical tangibles, but he compared him to Josh Paschal, of all people. Yeah. And it wasn't because the dude can hit people, right. It's because of his maturity as a quarterback. And I think with a guy who's started in a ton of football games, 3-year starter, even though you're only going to get him for a year, it's exactly what you need from a plug-and-play guy.
Well, when I said that earlier about Levis and Scangarello, it wasn't a slam on Levis. It was Scangarello with the total intent, don't let Will run. For the pros, I mean, that really, I think, limited what Kentucky and Levis could do and hurt their season before the injuries. But having the number one quarterback, or arguably the number one quarterback in the NFL draft, Kentucky's going to get it talked about a lot with the draft coming up. But with this class here, I really like Anthony Brown. He's my dude in this class. I think he's a true slot receiver. I love his quickness, his horizontal burst. And then when he decides to go north-south, he separates.
Yeah.
And that's what brings him out to me. But I'm anxious to see Leary in a Liam Cohen offense with the gloves off, okay? We're not walking on eggshells anymore. Just let him play. And that brings in the RPO. And Leary has a baseball background, so he can alter the trajectory. He can alter his throwing angle in the RPOs. And that's something we didn't see Kentucky do last year because of Levis's health. And then with Scangarello saying, you're not going to run. But I really I don't think Leary's going to get out and run, but he can. And but I love Anthony Brown. He is my guy in this class.
You were at his commitment.
I was at his commitment
ceremony.
I'm still 100%. This class is Kobe Keenum, the offensive lineman at Alabama. A lot of Logan Stenberg comps, other than Keenum's going to play center, right? But he's big, he's nasty. And
does he piss fire? Because that's how
he's a baller. He moves people. But what he's going to have to learn, college football is not, you're not going to get a knockdown block on every play. And he did that in high school. He was just pushing dudes around. But that nastiness, that's something that the Big Blue Wall needs back. Didn't have a nasty dude this year on the offensive line, and it showed. I'm not saying Keenum's going to come in and play, but he is eventually. He's going to be a multi-year starter. I really like him.
Well, and a lot of people tried to take him at the last minute too, like Mississippi State, Ole Miss,
North Carolina
Auburn.
was in there.
Yeah.
Nasty, physical offensive lineman that plays with effort that translate to any level of football. He just fits. And Freddie's talking about that culture. They need more of that.
Yeah.
And so I think it fits long term. He's probably not going to be a guy that plays right away, but you watch him and you can just see it. Like, you're like, that dude's a player. Like, I don't know where he's going to play. He can play center, right guard, left guard, but he's going to play somewhere. And so I think that is big there. And, you know, we can get into this offensive line class. You've got Austin Ramsey, has great size. He plays with power, but keep him weight down. It's going to be a question for him. And then Malachi Wood.
It's the opposite problem. He needs to put the weight on.
Yeah, he needs some more Austin Ramsey, and Austin Ramsey needs some Malachi Wood. You know, can Malachi get to that weight? He's a multi-year project, I would say. We're probably not going to see of him for a couple years. So that's the question on the offensive line. We can get more into the portal guys here in a little bit, but I think Keenum starts it like that. And Snoop said it today. That's Kentucky offensive lineman. He wears boots, he goes fishing, and he kicks ass on the football field. And that's really what they're looking for. And I think it's easy to see him. You know, that's an SEC footprint offensive lineman.
Well, and that's kind of to go to the portal guys. I mean, that's your Tanner Bowles, right? A dude who spent some time in that slow cooker at Alabama. They expect to plug and play. You could see him at starting right guard this year, as well as Marquez Cox at left tackle. One thing that was nice about Mark Stoops today, we didn't get a bunch of Will C's. We're not going to have 7 different guys calling plays in the bowl game. Like, he was straightforward. Cox is a left tackle. He should be healthy enough for spring practice. Leary should be healthy enough for spring practice. Dunn and Hardaway, those cornerbacks, they're playing cornerback. That's where they're going to go. They did a little bit of everything. So it was good to get some clarity from Mark Stoops, Freddie. But up front on that offensive line, we at least did get to see Cox up close and personal before he got hurt. They whiffed on a lot of portal guys last year at left tackle. How important was it just to be able to find your guy there at that left tackle?
Because you start from left tackle and you move all the way over to right tackle. With Cox signing, okay, you got your pure left tackle. Now you can make your adjustments on the inside. If Kenneth Horsey comes back, I don't know if he is or not, but then you have Tanner Bowles, you have Jagger Burton, you have Eli Cox. And if
Bowles,
Tanner Bowles, Eli Cox, Jagger Burton, you've got a good rotation.
Right.
And then you push from that left tackle. Once you're good there, you go across, then you start addressing the right tackle. Is Flax coming back? If he can, I mean, is that the answer?
The portal ain't closed down either, Freddie, so there could be more guys out there in the spring.
With the portal, we're just seeing the first wave.
Yes.
The second wave is going to be after spring practice. How many people lose their jobs? How many people looks, okay, I'm not going to play. So we're getting ready. We'll go through this again.
Right.
So the right tackle position, you could get that through the portal, but I think having Cox there at left tackle is such a valuable asset. Now you can move all the way over to the right side.
Not only that, there's going to be the bump after bowl games.
Yeah.
there's guys that want to play with their team in a bowl game, and then they're going to enter the portal after that. So you're going to have that. I think with Cox, like I know people probably get sick of hearing this, but he's a fit as an outside zone tackle. He's athletic. He's got lateral agility. He can complete reach blocks. Northern Illinois ran some outside zone. You get him and Horsey together, that's two guys who can run outside zone. Yeah. So, I mean, we'll see what it looks like. But I think the pieces might be coming together more on that so they can start becoming a bigger part of the offense.
And a rotation comes back.
Yes, absolutely. With Bowles and Jagger at that other guard spot if Horsey is back.
And you also see them recruit, or at least for the tailbacks, they're starting to get tailbacks that can run the outside zone more. Ja'Ton McClain, like that seems to fit his style a little bit better as well. And as we're still sitting here waiting on Twitter to see if Jamarion Wilcox pops, that guy can be
he's his own runner.
He's his own runner who I'm not going to go ahead and stick my flag in 1,000 yards on as a true freshman, but like he can have that kind of impact right away as a big-time playmaker who's not afraid to get hit. Like he doesn't shy away from contact. There's a couple plays in that highlight reel. He had 2,000 rushing yards this year for South Paulding in only 12 games. And a couple of those runs, he just was buried in a pile of bodies, and then you just he pokes free.
Contact balance.
He's a true all-purpose running back if he does sign. I think Kentucky got better at safety today.
Yeah, those guys are
Jeremiah England,
Grady Judd,
and Ty Bryant. I think all three of those can eventually play. But I think that collective of those three all played at a high level in high school on high teams. And they're all really, really smart. They appear to be very smart as far as anticipating where the ball is going to go, reading defenses, understanding plays, and they process things quickly. All three of those guys do. So safety, although it's not a sexy position to talk about on signing day, I think Kentucky did a really good job there.
Well, Jeremiah England, 8 interceptions for Lake Wales, their first state championship in school history this year. Ty Bryant rushed for a touchdown in that state championship game. I think he picked off a pass too, am I right?
He did.
Yeah, and then that school's first state championship. And then Avery Stewart, he's the highest ranked of the bunch, a top 300 prospect. So I'm with you. And they've done a really good job over the years too of hitting with these safety prospects. Where there's been a problem from actually the high school recruiting ranks is actually at cornerback. And that's why they've had to go to the portal to get some length and some athleticism. J.Q. Hardaway, it was a guy that they recruited out of high school, went to Cincinnati for a year. Then you get Jansen Dunn in, who's a little bit more of a mystery. Neither has played a ton of college football. And Dunn was actually recruited as a safety. At least that's what he was labeled as at a high school.
Right, and even Avery Stewart, I think, is labeled safety, but I could see him playing corner. I think the big thing here is they're looking for athletic traits, but mainly size, right? You look at Nasir Addison, even in this class, 6'2", big cornerback. You're looking at Avery Stewart, 6'2". You're looking at J.Q. Hardaway, 6'2". You look at Jansen Dunn, 6'1", 6'2", with long arms. Over anything, they're trying to get back to the Derek Beatty, Chris Westry model. We want to be big, we want to be long, we want to play zone coverage, we want to make these windows small, and we want guys that are going to come up and hit you. That's why I think transitioning some of these safeties, like a Dunn and a Stewart in a certain way, I think that's why you're seeing that, because they want to add some more physicality there. And I think Kentucky in their scheme, it's not a lot of bump and run. It's a lot of zone. It's a lot of getting hands on receivers, knocking people off routes, and playing a window in space. And if you got length, that adds a lot of value. And I think that's really, to me, what I see them looking for there at cornerback. And then at safety, I think Anglin, man, strong coverage skills. He's going to be a good deep safety, burst, speed, and the ball skills are off the charts. A ton of interceptions.
You mentioned Nasir Addison too, and that's a guy that you got to really scroll down the recruiting rankings to be able to find Nasir Addison, who many had listed as a receiver. I still wasn't sure if I could switch his position to cornerback on 3, so I'm going to figure that one out. Freddie, you're the expert on technology. I'll get you to switch his position. Thank you. But that was a guy Greg Schiano was trying to flip late in the process from New Jersey, and Stoops really perked up when he heard Addison's name mentioned on signing day. They really like that kid a lot.
Well, I'm looking at my notes here. One of my notes here is projects to a DB for me, and I'm glad that you all told me during the press conference because I wasn't there. He played DB, smooth body control. He high points the football. He's a hand catcher as a receiver. I like him as an athlete. I think he's very fluid for a taller athlete, 6'2", but he fits what Mark Stoops likes at corner is that height and that length.
Let's go back to the middle of the defense because Kentucky was about as deep as any position on the roster this year was that inside linebacker. But you're losing a bunch of 70-year-old men who have been playing that position forever, and Jacquez Jones and DeAndre Square. So you had to get 2 new guys. And we got Grant Godfrey, and then a surprise on signing day, Jayvant Brown, who we hadn't heard about Jayvant Brown until maybe on Monday when he decommitted from Michigan State, and the Michigan State folks had heard Kentucky as a possible option. And look, I think this one might even be more noteworthy because we're going back to SoFlo. We haven't been to SoFlo in a while since the Eddie Grant experiment. Jordan Wright's time's finally ending, and they're like, you know what? Let's get back into Thomas Aquinas and see if we can't mess around with some South Florida kids.
First South Florida signee since Salmonelli in the class of 2020. Wow.
Long time.
Like almost 3 full cycles without a South Florida signing, and then Jayvant Brown ends that streak. Played at 3 high schools, I believe, in South Florida. Has kind of bounced around. He's a typical box linebacker. You can see him play Mike in Kentucky scheme. I think the look here to me is number 1, Mike Stoops is going to have a presence for Kentucky down there. Number 2, does it get you into St. Thomas Aquinas? Does it get your foot in the door? We've seen in the past Kentucky get one commit early and then really explode maybe later. We saw it with Detroit. We saw they take Adrian Huey randomly in that 2021 class the next year.
Bunch of Nashville kids.
Now you start getting Nashville kids. Does this get their foot in the door maybe long term? That's something I think to watch for. But Brown is a big get because you're getting thin in that room. Mm-hmm. You know, you lose 2 guys this year. They don't really have any. And today, Mark Stoops told us that they're going to start like Grant Godfrey outside. So I assume he's probably maybe started that Sam position. But the Javen Davis comp with him is not going to stop. That's going to be the huge comparison. So if he adds some weight, you can see him moving inside and being a potential really good player for Kentucky. I think ceiling-wise, he may have as high a ceiling as anyone in this class. It's just going to be he's got to add some weight to that frame, but there's a lot of tools with him.
Ooh, I like your notes here, Freddie, on Grant Godfrey.
Yeah, I mean, I had him as an outside linebacker. I didn't.
You and Mark, it's almost like you spend a little time working together.
Yeah, I mean, North Gwinnett, that's another school like St. Thomas Aquinas. I mean, that's a very
the Gwinnett's, yeah.
Very important school in Georgia. Of the 2, I love Godfrey.
Yeah.
I think Brown.
He's just got a lot of juice.
Yeah, sideline to sideline. I think he's a really good off-ball linebacker, can play inside or out, fluid athlete, and positional diversity. I love he can play inside or out. I mean, that's a key factor. Well, then Godfrey is, to me, may be the best athlete in this class. Yeah. One of, if not the best athlete in this class. I really like Godfrey.
There is one other kid who I think is a pretty good athlete, too. Played 2 sports. It was a late addition, kind of like Jayvant Brown, and that's Tavion Gadson.
Yeah.
Where Tavion Gadson was committed to Florida State. He initially said, I think I'm going to wait and sign in February. I might go check out Tennessee. They get him on campus for an official visit, and he's like, you know what? I'm going to Kentucky. The 6'5", the length, his ability to move, I really like watching Gadson on tape like it.
Yeah, I think traditional kind of 3-4 lineman. You could see him playing filled in for Kentucky. You could see him playing boundary tackle. He's got good get off the line of scrimmage, burst. I think there's some havoc potentially with him because he does a good job of shooting gaps, time and snap counts, and getting off the ball, which is really good to see. You see penetration potential with him, like being able to cause some havoc. Mm-hmm. And so that's something I think to watch for him. But I think a good win. 6'5", 265 is what our On3 database has him at. We'll see. Do they want to bulk him up? Do they want him to play it that way? That's a big question with him, but I think there's a lot to like about Tavion Gadson.
He fits right into the Kentucky defensive line room. Mm-hmm. I mean, think of all the players that are tall, longer athletes. I love Gadson's motor. On tape that jumped out at me. Obviously, he's long at 6'5", 270. He's twitchy. be that big.
Yeah.
He lines up standing up with or with his hand in the dirt. Needs some technical work. Plays a little high, but that's most all defensive linemen coming out of high school. But I like Gadson. Obviously, Savannah's my favorite city in the country, so I love that. But I think it's a good pickup. You know, he fits what Kentucky does with its defensive line.
Quill Saunders, Jamarius Dinkins, the Spider, like those are all.
They're very similar.
Yeah, long, big guys that can create separation.
They can run.
Yeah. So a good athlete in the defensive line, a nice late pickup. And I think that is a common theme that, you know, when we were sitting here and I got to do my radio shock jock stuff and we're looking in the summer and they're only hosting a few official visitors, and meanwhile, Cardinal Bird Gang is having all their California private jets in town, and the volleyball players got his $1 million nil deal at Tennessee. There was a lot of flavor of the month stuff, and I think a lot of people in the Big Blue Nation were worried about how this class would end up, and you're seeing some solid quality players. Now, of course, they're not going to hit on all of them, but right now we're at 34. It'll be right around the low 30s, this final recruiting ranking, which is about on par with what you've seen from Stoops' deciding class. It's not going to have the 6 freshmen All-American that are all starting like you had in last year's historic class, but it does feel like it's going to end up being a solid class with some contributors that could be multi-year starters.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a typical Kentucky recruiting class where you have to do 2 things. Your top-ranked guys, you need to hit on them. They need to be good players. So your Shamar Porters, your Avery Stewarts, your Anthony Browns, you need those guys to come in and play. And then some of the low 3 stars that maybe would be projects, you need to hit on some of those. Your Jacob Dixons, your Elijah, your Malachi Woods, Nasir Addison.
Yeah.
Those, if you hit on, if you top guys hit and you hit on more than you miss, typically at the bottom of the class, it end up going to be a good class. But recruit and develop, right?
Yeah.
You got to develop your players, and you got the guys that are good. You need them to come in and play. Like for me, early, like Shamar Porter and Avery Stewart, I think have got and even Anthony Brown, I think have got the goods where they can come in and be a contributor early for Kentucky.
If this was 2018, I would redshirt the whole freshman class.
Well, Freddie, let me check. It's 2022.
Yeah, but it's not because of the portal, because of everything else. And how many players stay around for 5 years?
They don't.
They don't.
Yeah.
So you're going to have to play a lot of these guys. Now, position of need, receiver, we talked about the receivers in this class, Anthony Brown, Shamar Porter. It's going to be hard to get catches with Dane Key, Jamarion Brown, Tavion Robinson if he comes back, 2 tight ends, et cetera. So I don't know how many catches are going to be able to go around there. And safety is such a deep room, But I think because it is 2022 and we're in the modern era of college football with a transfer portal, you're going to see a lot of these kids play on special teams. You're going to see them play situationally because redshirting is no more a thing. I mean, it is, but it's not. So I think there's a lot of I love this class, but I do think that Kentucky's in a position right now. When I say redshirt the whole freshman class, I'm not talking about the transfers. Transfers got to play.
And that's also what makes it a lot different when you're talking about the recruiting class rankings. I mean, you got Devin Leary as your quarterback.
Yeah.
He's the #1 quarterback available. That was your biggest question mark going in. You get a 1,000-yard running back from Vanderbilt, a physical guy who he's not going to come in and be Chris Rodriguez, but he can move some piles, right? A dude who can get some yards after contact. And you also filled at some spots of need at cornerback. So, no, Kentucky doesn't have the top 25, top 20 classes before, but you've got some quality transfer portal players. And they're
not done there yet. There's going to be more.
Yeah. One position we did not hit on, I think we checked almost all of them off, except tight end, though.
Yeah.
And that's, you lost a couple from there. Yeah. Then you go and you get an All-American in Kamari Anderson, who is from a school that we've seen some quality players come from before, Freddie Maggard.
It's one of the best schools in America as far as developing football players. Kamari Anderson from Cass Tech out of Detroit. I love this kid. I like how willing he is to block. That's the big key with young guys. You can teach them to block all day long, but if they're not willing to block, then nothing's going to happen.
Or in Josh Caddis's case, you want to block. That's all you live for it. You breathe for blocking.
This kid also played defensive line. Mm-hmm. He's a long strider. He's got the preferred size for a traditional online tight end. He's going to be an early enrollee, so I like that. He will get plenty of reps this spring. So I like Kamari Anderson, and we'll see how he develops. But I love his willingness to block.
You speak of the willingness to block. You always need linebackers. You always need tight ends who want to block. And like if Kentucky gets in a situation where they're trying to get jumbo personnel, you play 2, 3, 4 tight ends. He's got there's an avenue for playing time for him, I think, early, just from that aspect.
I mean, Caddis worked his way into it this year,
Right.
and we didn't expect that coming either. They also got Tanner Lemaster, another big body at tight end in this class. And then Jacob Dixon that's kind of a wild card because you saw how that role excelled for Isaiah Cummings with Liam Cohen in 2021, and that kind of went away in 2022. Now Liam's going to be back, so you don't. I'm fascinated to see how this works out because Dixon posted some killer times when he tested at UK.
2 in-state guys that I just don't like. I guess you could classify as tweeners: Jacob Dixon, Tommy Zeismer, or Ziesmer. I'm not sure how to pronounce that. Excuse me, Ziesmer. Where do they play? Like, where do they fit in? Like, there's athletic testing for both of them that you could really talk yourself into.
Yeah.
There's the tape on both of them is really good, but it's just like, where does it fit here at this level? And that's going to be the question regarding both of them.
Right. We'll see. We'll see.
Because Isaiah Cummings, Cohen loved him.
Yeah.
And I think Cummings is going to factor more next year than he did last year. And so that kind of, you have those 3 tight ends to work with. I think he has a lot of traits similar to Isaiah Cummings, and doesn't have to play right away. If he's going to be a receiver or a tight end, can bulk him up a little bit. With Ziesmer, I just love that kid. I mean, he's just a football player. He's a winner, played on 3 state championship teams.
It was a hell of a run he had.
Yeah. I mean,
in the
he took
state title
over.
game.
He willed his team to win that state championship. He took over. So my question is, does he stay around the same weight and play edge? Or do you put 20, 30 pounds on and put him in a 3 technique? Can he carry that weight? So, again, I agree with that. Is where is he going to play?
Because that is the one kind of outlier where everybody on there is this long, lengthy guy, and he's just not.
But he's only 6'1", but he does have really long arms. I think that would be the rebuttal to that. It's just hard to where does he fit in at? That is the big question with him, I think.
We got to let the cake bake.
Yeah.
Right. It's time to let the cake bake. 350 for 2 to 3 years. You put them in that cooker, see how everything goes, and then you take them out of the oven, throw some icing on them. Am I got my eyes on Christmas cookies for this weekend? Yes. I'm going to eat way too many. Freddie, I hope you take a break from your diet.
Yeah, I am.
Okay, good. I do know that everybody here is waiting on bated breath. Ever since you shot your shot with Josh Allen, they want you to pick a 2-star that's going to be the top 5 draft pick. So I don't know if we have a Freddie Maggard diamond in the rough this year, but, let's just say, here's one that not everybody's going to be talking about on signing day. But you know what? I like this kid. He's got the stuff right there.
Well, I'm waiting on one.
Oh, who could that one that you're waiting on be?
Well, we talked about it, so I don't know if he's going to sign.
Well, yeah, Jair Hill is deciding after we tape this.
Yeah.
But probably going to be Michigan, but he's a dude.
unsung guy in here, and I don't think there's a hidden gem such as Josh Allen.
Well, yeah.
Nowhere.
Yeah.
But I don't think Ty Bryant gets talked about enough because his recruiting wasn't complicated. It was simple. His dad is a legacy Wildcat. He played his high school football 4 miles down the road. But I also saw him take over a state championship game. To me, that values a lot to me to see players take over state championship type environments. And he did that at running back. He did that at safety. He did that everywhere.
He's a ball player.
He's a football player, and Ty is brilliant on and off the field. So I think he's going to pick things up quick. He's an early enrollee. I'm not saying he's going to play early because there's not a need.
Safety, they're pretty stacked there, too.
I really, really like Ty Bryant in this class if I had to go with a unsung type of player.
Now, he had the extra year of high school, but it was impressive how he just grabbed the reins of that Douglas team and just kind of pulled them, I felt like. Yeah. And just did it all, running back, defense, and just was making plays week after week. And then, like you talked about, the state championship game. And for a program that was hanging over their head, right? Like, we hadn't won state yet. We need to hurry up and win this. It was kind of and he got it done for them. So I do think that was impressive how you saw him do that last year.
And one more thing before we cut out of here. Jansen Dunn is Danke's cousin.
Oh, that's a fun connection.
Yeah. So
That's a fun little
fact.
connection.
Yeah.
I hope you'll get a lot of fun facts on this show. We still got to get to the bottom. I got to do some more investigating on Grady Judd, Jeremiah Anglin. I don't know all of the connection there. Just look up the Polk County Sheriff. I don't know why that's his nickname, but we got more investigating to do. The transfer portal has really taken the KSR investigative unit down a few notches.
The most memorable moment, I think, of this whole recruiting cycle was the Saturday that Grady Judd announced.
Oh my gosh! It was about an hour long.
I felt like
Instagram live.
I was at my parents' house. I remember because my mom was watching Son Baker, and I had to stay there at least 2 hours longer than I wanted to, waiting for Jeremiah Anglin to commit. That was wild. That was probably Nick, for you, any memorable moments this recruiting cycle?
Man, I'm still over here scrolling, waiting on Jamarion Wilcox. Hearing about Jayvant Brown, though, after not hearing about this guy at all. Also, they really, UK this cycle, they stepped up their unofficial video game a lot. So there was a tense 30 minutes or so where we were trying to figure out if Carmelo English committed to Kentucky or not.
Yeah.
And it was just like, is this a commitment video?
Yeah.
It's BBN, and he's doing all of the commitment video stuff. So all trying to figure it out. And I think the biggest of them all was Freddie. We thought it was Graham Mertz for so long, and then all of a sudden out of nowhere, Devin Leary.
Yeah, I mean, Devin Leary's the story of this class.
Oh, man.
You know, I almost think we need to do 2 shows here, the high school class.
Yeah.
The portal class.
Gotten into the portal guys that much, but for the high school class, my biggest takeaway from signing day is Kentucky held on to Kobe Keenum, because there were a lot of teams that were vying for his services. And you know, the Alabama-Mississippi All-Star game is where Logan Stenberg jumped, and he got a lot of late attention. And Kobe Keenum jumped. He had a really good week as well. So I think Kentucky holding on to him, I think, was what stood out to me about this freshman class. But as far as the portal guys, you're getting proven entities all over the board, especially on offense. Cox, Bowles, Leary, Davis. You know they're going to be. You know they're going to roll, right? Because they've done it at the high level before, so that's very exciting.
Whose announcement took longer, Ray Davis's or Jeremiah Anglin's? That sunglass emoji, I about threw my phone across the room when I saw that instead of a decision. But we have fun doing this every single year. It's a treat. It is exhaustive, but we enjoy every single second of it. We couldn't do it without you all. Thank you all so much for following along, all recruiting calendar long. ABCs, always be prudent. It never stops here at KSR. Thanks for joining us all year long. Go Cats and go Kroger.